Oh, it's it, it looks fine to me. It will look fine to the people watching the stream since it looks fine to me. I don't know why you guys think. Yeah, that's weird. Well, you see, the people on the YouTube stream are not going to see the monitor or anything. I'm actually, yeah, that's strange. Maybe I changed something in Jitsi. Maybe you guys are seeing. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, it does squash the picture, but yeah, we all should be seeing the same picture, but obviously not. Yeah. Well, we are live on YouTube, so hopefully everyone is doing all right this morning or this evening, of course, for some of you. I know, Stefan, it's a little later. Mm-hmm. It's 5. Yeah. And then Lebanon, where Dark Zero is at, it's 6 o'clock. Yeah. This is kind of why I typically do these streams. It's 10 a.m. here where I'm at in the central time zone in the U.S., which is a little earlier than I'd like to do it, but it's early, but not too early. Like the American audience can get it. It's early evening in Europe, which is the bulk of the audience. Obviously, it's not a great time for anyone in Asia, and I get that. And unfortunately, probably my biggest demographic behind the North American audience is India, and I know that these live streams are terrible for that time. But hey, 24-hour time zones. I can't pick a time zone for everybody, unfortunately. So. And we shouldn't worry about sunrise and sunset. We all should work the same work day. Just some of us would have to. We would evolve into vampires, the ones that end up working the night shift, huh? Mm-hmm. But you'd have people, yeah, that would probably move to different parts of the world depending on if they're a morning person or a night person. Huh. Is it, no. Yeah, that's been needing to happen forever. Because we.
Country down, Croatia wanted to use summertime, and that won't go.
Complete
And
opposite.
the YouTube chat complains that they can't hear you guys. I've changed some settings, so can you hear?
Oh, my
Big
audio.
Pod
Hear me.
and yeah.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Hello.
Well, if they can hear one of you, they can hear all of you.
Can you hear them?
I can hear myself. I can hear myself on stream, so.
All right, that's all I needed was a confirmation. Yeah, I had to change a setting in OBS.
OBS again.
OBS is awesome.
Well, OBS has the audio channels for the mic and for the desktop audio.
Yeah.
And by default, both of them are set to default, whatever your default audio devices are, which is typically the audio channel on your motherboard. But obviously, I'm not using any of that. I've got Scarlett, Focusrite.
Speaking of which, Derek, since you have experience with external audios, you know the M Audio brand?
M Audio.
Yeah, M
I
dash.
heard of it.
Yeah, I think it's
familiar.
German or something of the sort.
Yeah, something.
We use the one of the USB cards that they made, a cheap one we got for $50. Whenever we use it, we get hissing sound and static sound in the background. So it's a USB external card. So I don't know If it's the
Yeah.
card or
Did you try another socket or another
yeah, we tried
adapter?
all of them. We tried
Okay.
USB 3, USB 2.
Is it externally powered?
No.
Okay.
That's what I
Is
was thinking.
anywhere
Electrical
close
interference.
to
Yeah.
electricity source?
No, I think it's because it's a cheaper one. That's
Could be
all I think.
that, or could be electricity. Electricity and sound don't mix
be.
anywhere.
Yeah,
Oh yeah,
some phantom power
in
somewhere
Lebanon.
sneaking around.
Yeah, in
usually.
Lebanon we don't have, as you guys call it, earth.
Mm,
We don't.
yeah,
We don't got
you
earth.
don't have a ground. Yeah.
We don't have a
No.
ground. Yeah, that's it. We don't have ground wire. It's just, and sometimes when I touch the case, it's electrifying.
Ugh.
Yes, that's the problem.
I would makeshift the ground then. Honestly,
Yeah, because any electrical interference
Yeah.
will absolutely ruin audio.
electrical interference. That's why on motherboards, the audio interface that is on your motherboard is actually isolated on the board, isolated
On
from
modern boards,
everything
not
else.
on the older boards. On modern boards.
On most semi-modern boards, we're talking about 2010 onwards. So
Yes,
anything
correct.
most people will have it with 64-bit CPUs, with anything with Intel I CPUs. Let's call it like that. That's definitely has isolated audio.
Yeah,
And before that, with most latest generations core CPUs core 2 quad or core 2 duo, many generations those had isolated motherboards. I know I have one that has.
I've had problems in the past with, especially like all of the audio equipment I have at my office with electrical interference. Sometimes you get some weird noises.
You
when
should
you're
have an
recording.
active UPS.
yeah.
Well,
We have a UPS. We have a UPS, but
No,
the
I'm
problem
talking to DT. DT should have
No,
an
yeah,
active UPS.
and that's where I was going with this. Yeah, and the other thing is try to make sure everything that requires plugged-in power
to be
that
separate.
you're
A
yes,
separate
don't
bus.
plug them all into the same outlet, because if you have a million things plugged in, you're going to create such an electrical field that's going to cause you problems with your audio.
Zero, not all UPSs are the same. Passive UPSs, those that just pass power and charge the battery, those don't filter electricity at all. You need to have an active, so it puts into battery, and from battery discharges and fills your network with electricity. Those filter because they produce pure electricity, the best form of electricity.
Yeah,
That's what you need to, and that honestly, for most people who heavily use computers, I would recommend to actually have that kind of UPS anyway.
Yeah.
Much else, just to have a UPS. Have an active UPS. It's an amazing thing. Brownouts are gone. Anything that has any kind of interference in your electrical network, which there are a lot, whether it be from home, because if someone turns on a blender, you're gonna have a problem, to whatever comes from your network, which definitely isn't clean power.
And having like a UPS or even just like a power strip, a power conditioner, something that's in between you and the wall, your equipment and the wall. Because if you're just plugging directly into the wall, that's usually a problem. That's going to get you a lot of that electrical.
No, actually, no. Power strips are a problem. Those that are just essentially just a cable with multiple outs. Those are a problem.
Yeah, and especially the ones with a light inside, because even that small LED tends to create brown noise.
That's why if you're gonna have, that's why in servers they use what is known as PDU, power delivery unit. It essentially does the clean power, so it cleans the power. It's a power conditioner, and
that's what I use at my office.
Yeah.
I just have a rack mounted
conditioner. Yeah,
like
I have an active UPS. It cost me $800 back then. That one is good, but in church where we go live on OBS, they're using that M audio card because of all the electric static that's we don't have ground. It's causing it to give out the louder hiss than the actual audio.
Well,
we need to figure out a ground situation.
Yeah, because it won't matter what card you put in it, as long as you
And we're
You get
using
that electrical
we're
problem.
using a $20 UPS this big. It's not.
One question: how much was the audio card? Just random question, like in dollars, like approximate
The
amount
cost?
cost.
Of a audio card?
Yeah.
You mean a PCI audio card?
The audio card that
The one
caused
you're
problems.
The one I got it for $50.
Well, yeah. $50 was how much my audio interface for my microphone cost. And it's like
You go
really
cheap.
good one.
You go cheap. You have to expect cheap performance.
Yeah, but $50 that's a lot for an audio
Yeah.
audio card, honestly.
No,
But,
because
That's actually I
yeah,
wouldn't say
a
that's
lot.
necessarily cheap.
That's not cheap.
Yeah.
Honestly, my audio interface, it was 75 or 65 on Amazon. Behringer is like really, really good.
sorry, Big Pod. I should have mentioned that it was $50 here, but its actual price on Amazon was $18.
Okay, yeah.
Oh, okay. That's
So
cheap.
now that's a bit different. That's cheap, yeah.
In Lebanon, everything is inflated by twice or three times.
That's why I ordered this stuff from Germany when I was buying microphone.
No, we have an external audio card, but it's so old. I don't think it's compatible with modern hardware. It's a FireWire card, also M audio, but it's we bought it back in the day from the States. No, from Germany. We bought it from Germany for €700.
Wow.
What kind of what are you plugging in this?
This is a FireWire card. It's this
No,
big.
I mean what are you plugging into the one that's causing problems?
Nothing. It just that's a big jack, barrel jack.
Oh,
It's coming out of a mixer tower rack. There's a mixer tower rack for church, and then we're taking it out via RCA. The rack is RCA. It takes RCA left and right, each channel separately, and then it turns into one barrel jack that we connect to the M audio card. That's it.
So it's a line in.
Yeah, that's probably your issue because it's just like a electric guitar. Those barrel jacks, man, they cause you just as soon as you plug them in, you hear the hum in the amps. So yeah, it's probably that.
If it isn't exactly correctly connected.
No, and every time we turn the knob to increase the volume or lower the volume, it does.
Oh man,
that actually might not be the audio card. Actually,
yeah,
I don't know what it is, but
could be anything in the rack. Maybe
no, the rack. It's a $15,000 rack.
Doesn't really matter how. With your electricity problems, that could be causing problems.
Yeah, maybe.
It might not be the card. Might be everything that is in.
There's a lot of variables. Let's put it that way.
There
There's
is.
a lot of variables.
Yeah.
But anyway, I want to ask everyone here. Any of you, as I asked GT earlier, any of you suffered the recent grub issue?
What grub issue?
Wow, that's weird. Everybody on.
I said the same thing.
Well, mine broke. I get a notification that the grab ran out of memory, but it boots anyway.
No, it's not. It's not that. It's the recent. It's on the bug tracker, on the Arch bug tracker. The recent issue with Grub. If you update Grub, if you're on Arch and you update Grub or any Arch-based distro, you update Grub and try to reboot without doing anything, you're going to end up on your BIOS screen. It's not going to go beyond your BIOS screen.
There is a reason I don't recommend people run Arch.
Okay.
But yeah, there is also a reason I don't anymore use Grub.
What do you use? Refined?
Oh no, he's using a EFI.
I use system dboot.
Yeah, the system D.
Yeah.
You know what? That I guess that's not a bad idea. Just put
for now, yeah, a lot of people are switching to Refined or system dboot. It depends, half.
I'm gonna tell you right now that Grub. What's the point of Grub nowadays? System dboot. Let me finish. Most people either, especially in this group, especially in this kind of run only Linux. You don't require a full fat system like Grub because you're not seeing it most of the time. You're not interacting with it.
Unless you're dual booting.
I am dual booting. Reality is, if you need to choose what operating system you boot, your UEFI already does that for you.
Well, couldn't everybody just switch to the what is Slackware using? Are they still using they're not using Grub for their bootloader either.
Could they be using Lilo?
Yep.
No.
Yeah, but
it is heavily out of date and heavily not updated.
No, it has been updated. It's received 4 updates.
It's feature complete.
It's
4 updates.
It's feature complete. It's not out of date. It's just it does everything it needs to do.
Feature complete, maybe, but that's not updating software. Saying it's feature complete is an oxymoron because reality is bugs appear, reality is security issues appear. If not with your software, with libraries you're using, so you need to update the software. Your software is a problem.
Like the recent issue with glibc killing easy anti-cheat. Arch, like I said,
I'm gonna say that was completely easy anti-cheat problem because they were using feature that wasn't documented and wasn't meant to be a feature.
Yeah, I mean that's not really.
At the same time, it's glibc problem because technically whatever you include in your software is automatically a feature, whether you want it documented or not. So both of them are at fault. It's just what it is in your documentation that says what are these new features. If it's nothing, you should take them as a wildland. If it isn't documented, it isn't a feature.
Well, true, very true. But still, I will always keep saying this. If you choose to use any Arch or any Arch-based distro, you should expect such things to happen. So don't panic. You chose to take that route. Just figure a way out of the situation you're in, like we just did with Grub. We just created a hook to reinstall Grub after update, and the issue is gone. So,
or you could do like me and just use legacy BIOS.
Or use legacy BIOS.
It
doesn't.
Don't use legacy.
As long as your hardware supports it.
Yeah.
Ever since UEFI exists, I haven't used legacy BIOS, and I don't want to use it.
It's almost all my personal equipment. I still use legacy BIOS. Now I'll install UEFI on other people's machines, but yeah. Well, you have no choice. If you dual boot, then you've got to use
No, you can use legacy BIOS. Problem
I didn't think Windows would allow that.
Technically, still boots in legacy BIOS if you know what you're doing. Problem is all the problem the dual booters had in past with Windows deleting your grub or whatever the crazy stuff they're talking about was because legacy BIOS is a bunch of crap and doesn't really work. And
because there was that there was that problem where Windows was deleting the bootloader.
Yeah, that was the problem. That was the problem because how legacy BIOS and MBR work. It's essentially you have to collaborate together to work, whether it is Windows or Linux. And neither were doing it correctly, or
we've got a little
correctly.
bit. We got some echo.
The best they could. Reality.
Hold up, Big Pod. We got a bad echo. Anybody that's not wearing headphones, try to put some headphones in because otherwise we're going to get a nasty echo. Because your speaker audio is going to bleed into your microphone.
If you're using a phone, that's also a reason.
Yeah.
The problem is I don't have any headphones.
Well, that's fine. If you can turn your speakers down as low as you can, we'll still hear, but just so it doesn't bleed into your...
Yeah, they're down.
The weird thing is it was only happening when Big Pod was talking.
That's also something I know.
Well, that would make sense because the audio that Dark Zero is hearing is him through the speakers. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
If nobody's talking, then you won't hear the echo.
No, I meant after
maybe it was Arthur.
You started talking, then the echo went away. So
maybe the person was Arthur who muted themselves.
Yeah, could be.
Could be.
Could be.
Yeah.
Let's just test this. Do you hear any echo right now?
No, it's fine now. It's fine now.
Yeah, it's good. But other than this grub issue that we had to fix via a hook, Arch has been stable. But it's once every few months that Arch has an issue. I learned how to deal with it, but the issue is not all the users know how to deal with it, especially when users have a complex setup like BTRFS and stuff like that. Then
well, you said it right though. I mean, you chose to install that.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things. If you install a rolling release, you chose that. Accept the consequences. You can't complain. Like,
yeah, exactly.
I never complain when things break on my machines. From updates, and there's minor annoyances every couple of months. Something is going to cause me a little pain, like 15 to 30 minutes worth of pain. I got to fix something, but I've kind of accepted that. I can't. I never complain about it. I never. Oh, I'm going to leave Linux and go back to Windows. Like you see these rage posts on the internet sometimes, where people, they blame everyone from Linus Torvalds to Santa Claus for their computer problems. I don't.
That
get
happens.
It, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, after the last kernel update, I broke my Realtek internet driver module. Just a standard one that came with the kernel worked, but it kind of got me nervous. And I also learned that blindly running updates before your actual day of work and client calls ahead is not a good idea. So update in the evening if you can, and it has been kind of funky to figure this out without any internet actually. So I had to Google on my phone and then download a driver module from the OEM, pipe it through USB via phone onto the PC and run it from there. So it's been quite a pain, but yeah, I learned now to control kernel modules and blacklist certain ones. And
are you not running the LTS kernel?
No, I'm running the latest.
Yeah, stick to the LTS kernel.
No, you're running 519.
I have Intel network card in my desktop.
I should probably switch to a hardnut kernel or to a Zen kernel or something, but
because honestly, you never need a kernel update. Like if all your hardware is working, that new kernel's not going to give you anything that you don't already have.
Yeah.
Technically, you can get slight speed improvement sometimes. Like there was one less than a month ago, but those are for most desktop users really minuscule and unimportant.
Yeah, it doesn't outweigh the risk of let me install the latest kernel and get a kernel panic. It doesn't outweigh that.
I never had a kernel panic though. I just sometimes.
Oh, you've never used
modules.
Gentoo?
No, not so far.
I had kernel panics on every Linux I ever used.
I have to. I've had kernel panics on Debian. I mean,
on Ubuntu, that's nothing. I had them on Ubuntu, and those are fun. You know how people tend to hate Windows for blue screen of that?
Oh yeah.
Kernel panics are worse.
Yes, much worse because
they dump you trillions of data points, yet most of them you don't understand.
Well, I'm going to confess something I probably shouldn't. I've gotten probably half a dozen kernel panics since I've been using Linux, and every single time I've ever gotten one, you know what I immediately did?
Grab the USB and reinstall.
Reinstall.
Yes.
I didn't even try to fix it.
I even bought myself a new USB just so I could actually do that.
Nope.
Well, that would have been my last second measure, like to plug in the USB and quickly run through an Arch install with a existing ISO. But yeah, the learning is to not update your kernel half an hour before you have an important call with the client.
Yes, exactly.
There's a reason in enterprise we don't deploy new software on Fridays.
Yeah,
Friday, that day.
Except when someone goes, when the guy who is deploying goes on vacation, then deploy on Friday because
I can see that somebody asked Big Pod, "What are you doing? Updating your machine? Is it Monday already?" Like there's a specific day of the week, right?
my systems tend to get updated whenever.
Well,
I use
the way I do
use Ubuntu and X. So
the way I do it is I have a clone install of Zero Linux on a separate SSD. When a kernel update comes in, I cancel it out on the main system. I test it out on the clone install, see if it works. If it works on the clone install, I go ahead on the main install.
Yeah,
Big Pod, shouldn't you be using cron jobs for your updates?
Cron jobs is
that's what I do.
somebody suggested it already. I might write a guide on how to do that on my forums, but and this is what I'm doing these days. Instead of including everything into Zero Linux, if somebody wants to know how to do a certain thing, I just post a guide on related to that thing on the forums, and I show them how.
I actually do that. I have a cron job that updates my system.
Now, what you got, Hip Dad?
Well, I
Just trying to get
recently
in
had a problem with kernel update. An LTS kernel update went to .46, and it wouldn't boot into it properly. So I had to go back to the previous one that when you get your grub boot screen, and I got into it, and I made sure I did a time shift update, and then I ended up having to just remove it from grub. So it wasn't even in the list. So it's just 43. My system sees me as having .46 and .43 installed. So I don't know how to get it completely out of there, but it's working on this version. But
what distro are you running?
I'm running Ubuntu Mate 2204.1.
Yeah.
Big Pod?
Yeah. What was the problem? I didn't listen to the whole thing.
Oh, okay. He had to revert to an earlier kernel.
Yeah.
Oh. Technically, the new kernel should still be installed, if I remember correctly. Also, technically, you have two kernels installed all the time. So you don't need to even revert it back. Because you can just go in grab. That's the one thing grab is useful for. Go to advanced settings and choose the previous kernel.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, that's what he was doing.
Yeah.
But then the primary one, the one that is newer still remains, but don't care for it. That's what I do.
Yeah. There's another weird thing on Lenny, on his laptop, the cat's laptop. I have MX Linux on there, and when I go and fire up the laptop, it boots into the install screen. I have to leave the CD in the drive, boots into the MX Linux install, and then I have to go to Rescue Grub and it does a scan that says can't find blah blah blah. Then it brings up HDO, and I click that, and then it fires up. It's weird.
Reinstall, I guess.
No, I'm going to install Zero Linux when I can get him to quit sleeping on the laptop long enough.
I would guess that grab didn't install properly, or some sort of.
Could it have been a bad upgrade from one version to the next? How long have you been running that?
Oh, it's been MX Linux has been sitting there from a clean install for a while. I think it has something to do with Microsoft's little hands in the UEFI BIOS.
No, I can tell you no.
Okay,
right now,
well,
Microsoft
anyway.
has problems there, but has a pause there, but they don't do anything problematic there.
And it could have been the cat that's walking across the keyboard.
Well, he fixed the monitor issue. Yeah, he fixed the monitor issue. The monitor issue, when I was trying to get it to show on the TV, it wouldn't work, and then he walked across it and it fixed it.
My recommendation: don't let your cat walk across the monitor, or the computer, or anything else.
Yeah, he's sleeping on it right now.
Yeah, Brandon, in the chat, you said you wish there was a Debian or an Ubuntu-based distro you could install like you would Arch Linux. If you want like a command line installation, you can do that pretty easily with Debian.
I have a solution for you. It's called the Bootstrap. Bootstrap. It's essentially even worse than Arch. It's how how most ISOs are built for Ubuntu and Debian. But it's
you can run through the you can install the mini ISO from Debian.
Yeah.
It's still an Ncurses installer, but it's just a base install, like almost like an Arch base install. Just run through the mini ISO, and then once you're done from the command line, you can install whatever packages you want. And Debian, unlike Ubuntu, doesn't have like those meta packages that include like the desktop, complete for GNOME and KDE.
I like
sometimes
those
they pull in
packages.
packages that you don't want. With Debian, you can kind of pick and choose what you want.
That's why you pick right packages. You don't pick a meta package. You pick a right package. I do actually like those Ubuntu meta packages.
Yeah, but it does cause problems when people, for example, they want to rip out one particular thing, but it's tied to the meta package, and then it wants to uninstall your entire desktop environment.
I have ripped out a lot of stuff that were in part of a meta package.
Yeah, but a lot of people don't want to fight with that.
I don't need to. Just do sudo apt remove, or more specifically auto remove is what I do. And
but if you start with something like Arch Linux, you never have to worry about.
Yeah.
It's never gonna want to uninstall, 200 packages that when you try to uninstall one program. Although I take that back. I've actually had one really bad uninstall. One time I was uninstalling a program, and I caught it before I did it. It was actually going to try to uninstall the kernel. And I don't know what the problem with that package was. I'm assuming that's a bad package build, whoever.
Yep.
They probably put Linux as a depends, and he shouldn't have.
Yeah. Well, welcome to bad packages.
Yeah.
AUR for the win.
Yeah,
There's a lot of bad
AUR for the
packages
win.
That's why I don't trust it.
You don't trust the AUR?
Yeah.
You don't trust the AUR. If I tell you how many useful things I found on the AUR,
Sure,
that will never end up on the Arch main repositories.
Sure.
It's beyond.
But I trust AUR and packages there. Probably as far as I can spit, if not less. Because honestly, I don't trust a lot of people. I will go and read the package build, which
it depends on,
and many times I would go and make it myself because
it depends on the package build and where they're pulling it from. Like if I'm installing like Brave from the AUR and I see the source is like from an official build of Brave by the Brave team, I'm not worried about that. But yeah, like small little programs that you've never even heard of, just random things you find in the AUR. Yeah, you might want to read the package build.
You should read the package build always.
Always read the package build. But my other, my current solution to all these issues, because I had users like you, BigPod, that tell me don't trust the AUR, blah blah blah. So I found a solution for them. Install Flatpaks, done deal. Bye bye.
Yeah. Story. That's what I did.
Yeah. So now Zero Linux, starting the next release, will be heavily offering Flatpaks over regular packages because the demographic of Zero Linux is new users. Flatpaks, very new user friendly.
Good.
So yeah, so if I want to offer Brave, I offer it as a Flatpak. If I want to offer LibreWolf, Flatpak, no AUR, no worries, no dependency hell, no nothing. Just install, use, done deal. Yeah. Some packages you cannot offer as Flatpaks because of the of its attachment to the system, how much it intertwined with the system it is. Having to tell users, oh, you have to run Flatseal, then give the application the correct permissions via Flatseal. That's asking too much.
That's been my big problem with Flatpak. I actually complain about it a lot to the people I know that.
But they're supposed to be containerized. They're not supposed to have access to your system.
There is a thing that this should be handled a lot differently from the start. When you run, you should have allow disallow button.
Correct. That's one way of doing it. But instead of doing it this way,
take Android as a basis.
Yeah, true. But I opted to offer packages that don't require such permissions, like Ferdium, Discord, and all the chat apps and email apps and stuff like that. They don't require such permissions, so I offer them as Flatpak.
Yeah, and honestly, any proprietary software, you're almost always going to have to resort to Snap or Flatpak or App Image, because you're not going to find those in the repos on many distros.
Yeah,
Arch is a little different because they'll put Discord, for example. Discord's in the core repository for Arch, which is kind of weird. But like Debian won't put any proprietary software in their repos, so you have to go and get those third-party proprietary.
Honestly, to me, that's bad for user experience.
Yeah, I just pushed the nerd fonts. Some nerd fonts are patching proprietary fonts, like the Adobe fonts, the Microsoft fonts, the Apple fonts. So some of them are proprietary.
Yeah, all the Microsoft core fonts are proprietary or licensed under proprietary license. Now, the thing with fonts is they're not an actual program that's actually executing any code. So users probably won't care if it's proprietary or free as far as the license, because it won't matter.
Like the software. From legal standpoint.
Yeah, they're more worried about source code that's executing on their machine that they can't see what it's doing. Proprietary fonts, is it a big deal? I never
saw that source code, so why are they worried? Because they never saw it.
Yeah, I just pushed all the nerd fonts as a complete package, 939 megabytes, and as split packages as well. I pushed them all to my repositories because users requested them as split, and another user requested the complete package. I was like, okay, I'll do it. But as soon as I did it, there was an update. I had to redo all 38 or 39 different fonts the next day. So
we had somebody raising their hand. Was that Andreas?
Yeah, that was me. That was me, actually. Hi, guys.
Okay.
About the hour, I don't think it's so bad, because usually packages start out in the hour, and if the voting is high enough, you may end up in a package, and then they get a review. Or you have vice versa, you have old packages of abandoned software, basically, which gets dropped to the hour back. So you have a sort of a mechanism to get older or not ripe yet packages in a certain place. And I find that's a very good solution, actually. And Arch Linux users know what they're doing if they take something from the hour.
Well, the thing with the AUR that definitely has an advantage over something like Snaps or Flatpaks is the AUR. You can have one person from the community that needs like an old driver that hasn't been maintained in 20 years, but some people still need that driver for this particular piece of hardware, and this one person in the community can choose to package that up and put it in the AUR, where typically, is anybody going to take the time to put that thing like on Snapcraft or FlatHub? Probably not. Having a curated store is nice, but also having one that's uncurated has advantages too. So it's not a black and white kind of thing. It's not like one is better than the other.
This is where people like me step in. I'm the middleman. I download packages from the AUR, test them myself, and if they're useful and trustworthy, I package them up and put them on my repository. A lot of us distro maintainers act as middlemen between the users and the AUR. So if we do our job correctly, we will never offer any packages that are questionable or should not be offered.
My problem with AUR is that, honestly, if it's a small package that nobody cares about, I could essentially create a new account and plant anything I want in there.
Yeah, but think about it this way, BigPod. For example, I have the G15 from 2006. There is no driver for it or application for it on Linux. The only place it's available, it's on the AUR. Mm-hmm. So in such rare cases...
Read package build. Then you can trust it.
Yeah, I read the package build. I always read the package build.
Start with don't trust, then go slowly towards trusting by reading the package build.
Yes.
That's the right way of doing zero trust. Trust when you actually understand what it's doing. If you don't trust it.
Yeah, by reading the PKG build is not enough. When you read the PKG build, you have to follow to the actual GitHub of the project, read the project on the GitHub, and this will get a lot of users into a very deep rabbit hole they don't want to go into.
Well,
this is our job before we offer the package.
That's why they should use containerized formats.
Now, here's the thing with the package build. The source link in the package build that tells you where it's pulling the source code, if it's somebody that you trust, for example, I was using Brave as an example. If it links to wherever Brave stores their source code, an official Brave site, official Brave developers, I don't need to go read that because I already trust the Brave guys. I wouldn't have been trying to install Brave if I didn't inherently trust those guys. You know, if it's somebody that you actually feel you need to go read their source code for the application, you probably don't need to be installing that program anyway.
But the reality is, if you trust those guys without reading the source code, you would probably trust them if their software was proprietary. Let's be honest, because there is no difference between the source code is open and source code is proprietary if you don't read the code.
Well, from a security point of view, like, are they going to do something damaging to my system? Yeah, like I would, if there's a package build for, I don't know, Microsoft Teams in the AUR, do I trust Microsoft? Yeah, I mean, I know they're not going to damage my computer. Do I like the fact that Teams is proprietary? No, but you're right on that. You know, I don't fear their package build. You know.
Yeah. You're right, DT. If it leads to, for example, like you said, with Brave, you don't need to read the source code. You already trust the company behind it. But when it goes to fan-made packages or packages made by users for the users, then you have to read the source code on GitHub, see if there's malicious code. And there are many web tools online where you can paste the Git repository. It will scan the Git repository and tell you if there's any malicious code, because not all of us are coders, like myself, for example. I don't understand code, so I don't know what to look for, what to begin to look for. And so I use that web resource to paste the link of the GitHub. It will scan it, and it will tell me if there's malicious code or not. And then I will begin to build trust with the developer. So,
and I wanted to get back to, I'm going to briefly change subjects here, because Big Pod, he said, you know, Flatpak, I guess, should have been redesigned. You know, it made some questionable decisions that could have been better. I want to talk about Wayland and some of the design. Yeah.
Redesign.
Exactly, because it's been like 12, 13 years. It's not ready. And people are starting now to really get upset at Wayland, because I'm seeing a lot more changes of opinion where we're ready, let's all start using Wayland, and now people are actually trying to use Wayland, and they're like, okay, it really isn't not ready. Yeah, right. Like,
I use it.
I'm seeing a lot more people that are trying Wayland, especially on GNOME and KDE Plasma, because they're the only desktop environments really ready for Wayland. And then they're running into these major showstopper issues, and now people are frustrated. It's like, how long is it going to take for Wayland to be ready? And I think the fact is that just from the very beginning, it was just designed poorly. I think the fact that it is so difficult for people to create their own Wayland compositors, where like anybody can create an X11 window manager. That's why there's hundreds of them in our repositories right now, right?
Let's talk about Wayland and why it should be remade. Let's remember, at the end of the day, Wayland is made by Red Hat. So approaching them with new code is rather hard. That's the first of all. Approaching any kind of Red Hat project with new code, with classes, with pull requests, it's rather hard before doing anything else.
Well, I mean, when you're dealing with a corporation that's behind something, yeah, because they're not just going to let the community steer them in any direction, because they have their own vision of everything. They don't mind if you contribute as long as you're on board with everything they're wanting to do.
I heard stories of them essentially going, it's Red Hat, it's okay. It's not Red Hat. We're not going to entertain the story. And the same patches were added.
But that's not a Red Hat only thing. A lot of companies are like that.
Through. So that's why that's that kind of stories I heard. But let's go even a bit further with why is Wayland bad? It was designed. It was started.
I didn't say Wayland was bad. It's taking a long time to.
That's the effect of it. It's taking a lot of time. First of all, that's why it's taking a lot of time. First of all, they're trying to implement the whole of X again. X was made over many years, so it's
started in 1986. Started in 1986.
Hard, complicated, especially when you're trying to do it properly and securely. It's hard and complicated. It's gonna take a long time. True. Problem is they decided to essentially re-implement X11 and made it a protocol, which was a problem because it should have been API from the start. Second, they essentially made a lot harder to do anything because they made a lot less of API sort of connections into X11 than Wayland.
We got a disagreement. That's what I wanted. I wanted a debate.
No.
Hold up. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just. It's a little. It can get confusing at times. That's all.
Because you probably have more Wayland experience than most of us being a plasma user. So.
Yes, I just wanted to say that with Wayland, it's still, to me personally, it's 20% done, and it will take a long time to get there. Like I said multiple times, why do users bash a distro for not shipping with Wayland? Like this is
no reason. Because they are Linux people and they will find a reason to bash something.
Well, I'll tell you the reason, because I get this a lot because I get people asking me to cover Wayland and Wayland compositors and things. People are so ready for Wayland to be ready. They think all they need is just to convince people like Dark Zero. Just ship Wayland on your distribution. It's ready. Even if it's not ready, you shipping it will help it be ready. And no, I'm not going to break things for every single user of a distribution because you think, it's going to speed up development of Wayland. That's not the way this works. When Wayland's ready, people will use it.
Yeah.
But people using it doesn't make Wayland ready.
I'm going to say it like this.
Like Josh, recently brought something to light on Mastodon. I was tweeting about my distro and everything, and he was like, "You should contribute to upstream to make projects advance further." But shipping something that is incomplete like Wayland on a distro will not make users give us crash reports or issue reports so we can publish upstream or post on the issues upstream. So they're not going to even do that themselves. They're not contributing. So by extension, we cannot contribute to the code upstream. The only way a project can become better is by contributing to the issue tracker, posting each and every issue that we encounter along the way. But if we don't do that, how is it going to advance? So I told a lot of my users, I cannot ship Wayland because all you're going to do at the end of the day is complain, this is broken. You're not going to do anything about it. You're not going to post upstream. You're not going to give me error logs. You're not going to give me anything how are we going to help the project grow?
And I get these questions all the time. I'm sure you do too, because I cover a lot of like basic X11 command line tools on the channel. And when I share some of these tools on camera, I'll immediately get somebody, well, this doesn't work on Wayland, or is there a Wayland alternative? And more than half the time, no, there's not a Wayland alternative, and there's nothing I can do about it, and that's not my fault. That's not X11's fault. That's just the Wayland guys haven't written a tool like that yet. So
problem with Wayland is that they went a lot more basic which is a problem because then why did you go basic if you're taking just as long as X to be complete?
Well, yeah, I get
Problem
the
is because of that. Let's take screencasting, which is the Wayland term for recording the screen.
which is the problem why you don't
Yes.
see content creators using Wayland.
It's the problem
ultimately.
why you cannot do
Right.
anything useful when it comes to sharing your screen.
Yeah,
on
if you're
Wayland.
doing something with video, Wayland, yeah, if you're doing something with video and you're an NVIDIA user like I am in this computer, there's no way in hell I can use Wayland.
I can
It's-
use
I
Wayland
can't.
on my NVIDIA system. It works now. Problem is that my work laptop uses Intel, and I use Wayland because it has a touchscreen.
Right.
But when I need to present something on my work laptop, I have to log out, switch to X version of GNOME, and run that because there is no way in any kind of world where I'm gonna be able to showcase while running Wayland.
because
one int-
Wayland, they have their own philosophy.
Yes.
With key bindings, they lock the key bindings out for some reason
It's
because
not key binding is the problem here. Well, I'm gonna tell
and screencasting. This goes along the. If you want to have a presentation, you want to go next slide and stuff like that. It will not work because
it could be a demo. It can be just showing the screen. I can't do that. I'm gonna explain why. It's because they said we're not gonna develop APIs or protocols for programs to hook into to get those. We're gonna just create primitives, and then it's on compositors to create those APIs that hook into the primitives.
The problem
Which
is
a problem because you have 100 compositors, which means 100 different APIs, which means there are some compositors that don't even implement those APIs because why should we need to do that? So
it's a problem having the compositor.
Now your Chrome, now your Firefox, now your Discord, now your Teams. They need to develop 100 different hooks into those APIs or develop their own hook directly into the primitive.
It's having the compositor and the window manager tied together. That's the problem too.
It's the compositor. Compositor is the new name for window manager.
There's the window. Yeah, exactly. Right.
Isn't that the whole purpose of Linux? That they're behaving the way they're doing with the Wayland? I mean, Linux is the big beta testing platform, actually,
No.
for all the software.
No.
Well, no. It does seem that way. It's like in a lot of
remember
cases.
that Wayland is only used on Linux.
Because I can think of some desktop environments, some really, really popular desktop environments that seem to always ship in beta quality. I'm not going to name their names,
No, interesting question I just got on Discord. When will Grub become a Flatpak?
No, you can't do that. So that's interesting, but no, that wouldn't work. Well, another question from the chat, though, I thought was interesting. Sumiran, he writes in, when NVIDIA drivers are fully open source and already patched in the kernel, I guess he's asking, would that help with this Wayland problem?
No.
If NVIDIA continues to open source
It's
stuff,
a
would that help
DRM
the
issue.
Wayland?
It's a DRM issue.
No,
Okay.
it's an issue of how both NVIDIA implements some stuff and how Wayland implements some stuff through the so-called EGL. And NVIDIA had to do some stuff to make those
That's
stuff
what I was
work,
going to ask.
which
Is
is why
NVIDIA...
actually open source and been open source for quite a while.
And
But
who
it
really
was
has to
the
make
same with
NVIDIA work on Wayland? Is it NVIDIA's responsibility
It
to
should be
make
Wayland's.
NVIDIA? Okay, well, that's where I was going.
If you
with
ask
that.
me, because it's on them to make work with the hardware available. It's not on hardware manufacturer to make work with what software was offered. They create a driver. You should be able to hook into that driver.
I would agree with that, but on the internet, you see people throw blame in all kinds of directions. Yeah.
Yeah, it's welcome to internet.
Yeah,
It's easy when
those-
NVIDIA is releasing the drivers. It's very easy. They want to enter the server market. And the
Yeah.
only way they can do it is to support Linux better. That's why they do it.
Another
That's
issue.
why they didn't
Another
release
issue.
Let's
drivers
be
for the
clear.
desktop. users.
Another
They are
issue.
more interested.
Another issue.
No,
with,
that's not.
NVIDIA.
That's about servers. That's not really because most server who Nvidia is king on servers already. Same on workstations. It's been king for quite a while. They don't need open source drivers. Let's be clear. They don't need open source drivers because that 15 minutes to 20 minutes it takes for a server administrator to install it NVIDIA driver. That's not a problem. That's 20 minutes well spent for a system administrator in a server room, because reality is they won't even take that 20 minutes because they will have an image that has all that settled, because they have 50 of the same servers and it's already tested like 30 times and it works. So it's just installing that ISO or imaging that system.
You want to if people think that what they're going through with NVIDIA on their consumer graphic cards is bad, think about the people who own laptops with Quadros. This is where NVIDIA and Linux become even worse.
No, no.
Yeah,
actually,
if you
but
have a hybrid
is,
system, that's a problem.
Reality is, most of those who have Quadros, they get them from work. Those are imaged, so that system administrator that installed that system, yes, once took about an hour to figure out how it all works together, and then image that system, test it on 15 different laptops, so that all of those it works, and then just image the whole fleet.
But that doesn't mean that it's gonna work without issues. I had users trying to install the latest NVIDIA proprietary NVIDIA drivers on Quadros, and the Quadros wouldn't boot. As soon as they select the Quadro, it will give them a black screen, or it will give them a kernel panic.
That's happened, but that happens. Yeah. But then again, those most of those updates get tested like 3-4 times by the administrator before they even allow you to update.
Yeah,
because many of those laptops don't have normal update policies. You and I have. So this is a clear consumer problem.
But what about the servers when they're using 3D graphic for rendering? Most servers, at least my university, we are using graphic cards in Linux for rendering, not the CPU. And there, NVIDIA really sucks. That's why most of our servers have Radeon, because the drivers is completely mess on NVIDIA.
Those are worse.
Now when they're releasing
AMD drivers are worse.
Easy.
Besides the fact that their system for 3D acceleration for Radeon is even worse than NVIDIA. But even the Pro driver is worse, because you're gonna wanna be using a Pro driver because you're not playing games, which is the only thing open source driver is useful for, and you're gonna have a million problems because the proprietary driver is really crappy for Radeon, and even open source driver isn't that great. Let's be honest. That's why it's only useful for games.
Big part.
But again, I'm gonna say again, if you have a problem installing on servers the NVIDIA GPU, I don't know what you're doing, because it's even easier than on a desktop. I've done a bunch of servers. It's so easy. It's funny.
Well, wait. Well, like for
the biggest problem I had with NVIDIA drivers is actually setting up X to hook into it. That's where the problems lie.
Like, think about it this way. People ask me, why won't you switch to AMD GPU? All because AMD GPU just works. The driver just works. I was like, at least NVIDIA proprietary driver, as proprietary as it is, they give me a control panel that allows me to configure the GPU settings. But AMD GPU, they tell me, here's the GPU driver, fuck off. You cannot configure it. You cannot do anything. If you want to set up ray tracing or whatever to be handled by the GPU instead of the CPU, you're pretty much screwed. So I'm like, I will stick with NVIDIA until AMD gives me a control panel. That's it.
And also depends on what kind of work you're doing.
On my desktop, I have to change the setting in NVIDIA settings panel because it's the same default, but it's not the same default for me.
Yeah,
but I'm gonna say this also. I use NVIDIA GPU for 3D acceleration for rendering things for a reason, because it's not 10 times better, not 100 times better, because it's 1,000 times better than anything AMD ever offered. And that's why I'm also kind of waiting for what Intel will do with their 3D acceleration, with their rendering,
when you're trying to
with their
do
hardware acceleration for rendering. That
when
thing
you're
is
trying to
gonna
do
be
stuff
game
with
changer.
video that requires the GPU acceleration, the NVIDIA cards are so much better. Being both an AMD user and an NVIDIA user, yes, the proprietary drivers for the NVIDIA cards, they're just so much better as far as speed and power and everything. AMD does have the advantage of having a driver built into the kernel and all of that. But again, it depends on what you're doing. If you're somebody that lives in something like Blender, for example, and you do that kind of work,
forget AMD.
You would never buy an AMD card to do that. You would buy an NVIDIA card
or DaVinci Resolve for that matter.
I'm gonna say I know a guy who bought himself an AMD card. No, he had an AMD card, so he can accelerate games because his current NVIDIA card is too powerful and outputs too much heat. But what he did, he went and purchased, I believe it's NVIDIA Tesla, to just for one thing, for NVENC encoder.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because it's so much better than anything.
I use Kden Live, and when I output my videos, I tell Kden Live to use the NVENC encoder. It renders a 15-minute video in like 2 minutes and a half, 3 minutes tops. But if I use the AMD, there is no encoder in the AMD, so I have to use whatever codec comes with the CPU.
Technically, there is an encoder. You just actually be a VA API. There is
Yeah.
an encoder.
So
But it's
if I use the AMD, it will take 20 minutes to render a 15 minutes video.
Yes. With my 3060 Ti, it has the newest form of NVENC. There is.
The other big thing where NVIDIA is a big deal.
1 minute. 15-minute video, 1080p, 60 FPS, 1 minute to render. Of course.
The other big advantage for those of you that
so
stream,
difference.
If you stream, you're really going to appreciate having an NVIDIA card.
Yes.
For example, in OBS, you can use the GPU to actually. Yeah.
I use it for streaming, for recording, all the time because
if you try to do CPU encoding to stream, unless you have a really good CPU, it's not going to work. You can have a mid-range NVIDIA card and live stream like a champ. So
okay, a question that's gonna make you all laugh. It's a question that's legit. I consider legit, but in a funny way. When will Windows code be hosted on GitHub?
Never gonna happen.
I could tell you right now,
guys,
it's never, and it will never happen. Maybe some older version will get there.
Even if it was,
never.
7.
And I cannot. I won't tell exactly why because I'm not sure if I can. But what I know, there's stuff in there that just won't allow them to.
Well, it would never be public code. Let's be real.
Bits and pieces. There are bits and pieces of Windows that are. If you wanna have a bit and piece of Microsoft of Windows, go look at the repository for Windows Terminal. There you have bits and pieces of Windows already, and you can even contribute to that and get them into Windows.
And contribute to a terminal emulator.
There isn't just terminal emulator. Let's. I'm gonna let me just.
That day
so revolutionary.
And NT kernel is when they switch to Linux kernel, but that's never going to happen.
That's never going to happen.
No, they're never going to open source something.
From what I know, Windows kernel is actually better than Linux kernel.
Yeah.
You don't want to open source.
The only way you're going to see Windows code is disgruntled employee.
Yeah,
they don't want to open source anything that naturally has vulnerabilities. You got to understand, there's security problems with like the NT kernel that have been there for decades. They don't want to.
That's not even the problem.
But they don't want to verify that. Hey, we knew some of this stuff's been a problem. We didn't fix it.
They do security audits of the code. The problem is that they have contracts. They don't allow them to open source it. with certain companies, with certain security firms.
That's
That's how you get this thing done.
That sounds like they've got contracts with certain government organizations. Probably wouldn't want to. Is that where you were going with that?
Companies that use Windows get to see source code. A lot, especially bigger companies that get to see Windows source code.
And the funny thing is, Microsoft owns GitHub.
Yes.
And they don't have their code on GitHub.
Ironically, Git doesn't work with Windows source code. That's what I heard. Git falls apart with Windows source code.
You have to use WSL. You have to use WSL.
No. Git itself isn't good enough. Falls apart with Windows source code. They have their own version.
They have their own version control system
that is specifically made to just work with the Windows source code because of how much and how complex it is.
What are they using? Bazaar?
Now they have something completely in-house. Completely specifically made for that.
You know, this might be why Microsoft wanted to hire Linus Torvalds all those years ago. They needed a Git that wasn't Git.
They
have that.
They're gobbling up different parts of Linux. They gobbled up GNOME. They gobbled up Fedora. They gobbled up Ubuntu. Who else are they gonna gobble up?
How they gobble up Ubuntu? How they gobble up Fedora? How they gobble GNOME? Please explain.
Fedora. That was a strange one.
Yeah, the Fedora. How else do you think Fedora is able to offer secure boot compatibility? Because Microsoft put money in Fedora. Microsoft put money in Ubuntu.
Whoa. Red Hat and Microsoft work together.
They Debian, because Debian also has that solved. Simple. They actually went and talked the talk, walked the walk, and actually made the right decisions. They have a single certificate Microsoft signed for them. That's it. They have it with that.
Yeah, but how do they get the certificate unless they sign something with Microsoft?
Sign something?
Yeah, it's a meaning of it's a matter of speech.
They
it's
signed
basically
the contract.
cooperation. Nothing else.
They cooperated with them. They said the term, Marcus said the term, and they accepted them. Simple as that. It's like saying that Red Hat is with Microsoft because they collaborated on a piece of software.
Yeah, and the other thing is
because they together met Keda. Is it true? No. Because they cooperate doesn't mean Microsoft gobbled them up.
Right.
That comes from people who don't understand how business works.
Yeah, also, they all have a Red Hat, Canonical, Microsoft, all these open source companies, and I'll throw Microsoft in there because they do contribute a lot to open source these days. They're all part of that organization where they won't sue each other over patent infringement and all of, like, they are collaborating. They all are working together, but that doesn't mean they're all the same company. Yes. Microsoft is not calling the shots. They're just all where their visions align, they all go the same direction, but where they don't align on things, they're going their own way. Red Hat is in no way the same as Microsoft.
Let's be clear.
Microsoft
I heard people say
in Linux. It's very easy.
Yeah.
The whole world runs on Linux. They want a piece of cake of that. But have the piece of cake of that, you need to work together with the open source community, because they're going to sell their services who going to one way or another be on a Linux server. So of course
Microsoft already has a big piece of that.
This business. It's not because they love Linux. It's because they can earn money on it.
Yes, because
Microsoft is making a ton of money with
it. Microsoft is a business.
Yeah,
it's made of people, and those people may love Linux, but as a business, they have to take a strategy that makes them money because they are a business. End of story. And probably a lot of you don't know, but Microsoft made 3 Linux distributions.
Right. Sonic, and Microsoft has the Azure. Microsoft has WSL. Microsoft does a lot Linux stuff. And they make a ton of money.
And a lot of new software that they make is open sourced.
Microsoft, even their proprietary software, They make a Skype for Linux. They make a Teams for Linux. Like you can,
OneDrive.
Microsoft actually makes software for Linux now, which 20 years ago would have been. There's no one would have thought that would have ever been possible. When the Steve Ballmer days, when he was calling open source cancer, like the idea of Microsoft writing Linux software.
Exactly.
But think about what's happening.
The statement.
Think about what's happening now with hardware. Microsoft, for example, is I don't know what they're doing with some hardware manufacturers, but they're making laptops not allow Linux to boot.
That's not true. That's not
true. But
it is true. If you read all the articles about it, they have proprietary BIOS.
Yes, there were some problems. There are some problems because there's something called Pluton coprocessor, which is a security feature, and there was some problems in the early versions because, well, things happen in early versions. What Microsoft is doing, they're working with this. They're working with CPU and motherboard manufacturers to make a what is essentially in macOS terms D2 chip, except much more open. It's called Pluton coprocessor, and they have been working on Linux support for it. Yes, all the time. Some of it doesn't work. Yes, of course, it's software, it happens. It's hardware, it happens. And but at the end of the day, they are, as far as they talk, they are committed to making it work with Linux. And they were, as soon as they said they're putting it out, they said that it's gonna work with Linux.
And someone in the chat,
of course.
Someone in the chat was asking about OpenSUSE. Are they owned by Microsoft? I'm assuming no, but OpenSUSE has been bought so many times. Like literally every year, SUSE is owned by a different company, and because of that, there's always these rumors that the next company that's going to buy them is Microsoft.
Currently, it's equity partners.
Yeah. But could Microsoft buy SUSE? Sure, they're always up for sale.
Yes,
and usually for not a very big price. Like SUSE is not, I guess, that profitable because, like I said, it's changing hands all the time.
The interesting.
If it was a profitable company, people would keep it.
OpenSUSE is supported by the German government. That's why OpenSUSE survived. If it wasn't for the German government support, they would be bankrupt a long time ago.
Yes.
Yeah. Still, there's some interest in Germany to have something for the German-speaking community.
Yes,
there's still some people who refuse to learn English. Like I was listening to talks from the Chaos Computer Club about mitigating software issues and DevSecOps, where like one key part of the talk was basically getting people to learn English. So there's that weird German-speaking bubble, especially also with SUSE and also with like German like standard companies, smaller ones, bigger ones that people probably know or don't. But a lot of them also rely on their enterprise models and they do have contracts in Germany.
Yeah, but I would think language would be a barrier for a Linux product, because I think of like some of the Chinese distributions, which are weird because China is the largest English speaking country in the world, oddly enough. Like there's like, I don't know, like 800 million Chinese that actually know English, but all the Chinese distributions have Chinese, like Mandarin Chinese versions. You know, if you wanted it in English, you could get it, but like I don't think of any Linux distributions as being like a one language distribution. Like you can't just choose whatever language you want your distribution in anyway.
But
referring to like forums and issues and support, I've noticed there's
documentation. A
lot of that is done in German, which is nice for me. But to be honest, life is too damn short to learn German seriously.
You know what though, and I know this is going to be the lazy answer, but I've heard it so many times about these. Like you go to documentation and it's in a language you don't speak. Google Translate. I mean, it's a real thing. It's not perfect.
Who does that? You have Italy, France, Poland, Spain. They're all doing the same thing.
Yes,
in their own language. We don't want to learn English. I'm
gonna say Poland and Spain are a lot better about being English than France, Germany, and Italy. Especially Italy. Italy.
No, France is even worse. There's a law in France that like each product that is sold is required to have like a French product description, and
That
the
should be
English
correct. That
part
should
is
be.
not allowed to be more than 25% of that package. So there's weird
France
laws.
and England, they don't like each other.
Yeah.
Well, I can understand for safety reasons you want products to
Yeah.
actually be described in the native language. I mean, there could be real issues with not having that.
Yeah, but
I am actually sorry for French people that have to learn that language.
Oh yeah, they complain a lot. Because French is our second language, and my uncle is French. I know that firsthand. The French, you tell them to learn German, it's like asking them to learn the enemy's language.
Yes, or to ask them to learn English.
to learn English,
it's the same
it's
thing.
the same.
Well, there's many parts of the world where there's real language problems as far as there's 10 or 12 different languages spoken in the same region. There's many parts of Africa where they struggle trying to decide on what language to use in schools. What should their kids be educated, because they speak so many different languages because of the various native tribes, and then you had all the Europeans that came that brought Dutch and English, and then you had Afrikaans, and there's so many. Right.
We had the same issue at some point in the early 1900s, because we were occupied by the Turks, then by the French, and then by the Americans. But now, when you are born with 3 languages. You speak French, Arabic, and English. You cannot speak less than those 3 languages. And any region in Lebanon, they speak all 3 languages. Any region. That's why the Lebanese population gets hired and outsourced from different countries, because we know 3 languages. This is a weapon that we carry since birth. Ammo that we carry since birth, and we are hired all over the globe because of that. Just because we know 3 languages. A lot of countries like Russia, like France, and Germany, they speak only their own language, and lots of parts of these countries they only want to know their own language. They refuse to learn any other language. So if they want to hire someone they should speak more than one language, including their native language.
In my country, Slovenia, first language you learn is Slovenian, of course, mother tongue. In first grade of primary school, you have English classes till the end of schooling. It's not a selective course. It's a full-on course. You have to learn English to pass school, and you have to learn it quite well. It's
almost the same.
If you are the example, Big Pod, I don't know. I don't know. I have questions about that.
What?
If you are the example of learning English in Slovenia, I have questions about that.
Why?
Oh no! Oh no!
Shots fired.
Well, I'm gonna tell you right now that I know a lot of people, and I'm quite good speaker.
I was just kidding, Big Pod. No one can take a joke in here.
What did you expect? It's Linux.
Wow.
I am quite proud. I am proud of the fact that I'm quite good at English, because for a simple reason, I have to know English. I work for an American company. That's something I don't joke about.
We're sorry.
I have noticed, though, in all seriousness, I mean, Big Pod's English is not bad, but having known Big Pod for, I don't know, 3 or 4 years now, Big Pod, when you first got on camera, your English was a lot worse than it. I know. You've gotten a lot better with just speaking in general, not necessarily the language, just conveying your
is-
thoughts. I'll just say that.
Yeah. Problem is, I knew how to speak English. Problem was, I learned English in school,
Yeah.
and that's all I needed to know. You learn how to speak it, how to convey it out, how to have a conversation is something
That's
you
different.
won't learn. You need to have actual conversations with people. That's why I put myself out there, why I started my YouTube channel, why I started speaking to people
Yeah.
like this chat,
And
to actually get good at this stuff.
that's where I was going with this, because I see people with YouTube channels, people that have made a lot of videos, sometimes people that have made videos over a number of years, that still look nervous on camera. They stutter, they pause for long periods of time. It's like, I know in real life they can talk. They talk to their friends and
That's
family
another
just
problem.
fine. But when they turn on the camera, it's like deer in a headlight.
I get nervous quite a bit on camera, which is ironic because I'm a good showman. I've been whether it is theater from in school. I was in theater all the time. Like,
another thing I
actually
was going to
acting.
say, public speaking is something we don't teach kids. Anymore, as just stand up in a class and read or give a speech. That used to be something common. That's not as common now.
No,
And
we learn online.
Big problem with that is that here we do at least one. We have to have one presentation, one thing every year. Have many, like in Slovenian class we do every year. We do like a speaking thing. You have to do a speaking thing on a whole thing. Problem is, most people just write it down and learn it. That's not the right way to do it. I always went. I essentially remember one time it was really, really funny. I forgot we had to talk about a book. I went down to the library, picked up a book I knew, went up. When teacher called me, I placed the book on the lectern and just started talking about it. Zero prep. I read it once or twice. Zero prep. Last time I read it was months ago. Zero prep, and I talked about it completely without problem. Showed it, all that. There were some who basically line by line wrote the whole speech and tried to remember it line by line and still had problems.
You can't do that.
Yeah, or even just had points to then remember. I was speaking completely normally with just train of thought. That's how I always every single PowerPoint, everything that I just go.
Let's get Max in here.
Some left field, but it's okay.
Max wanted to speak. Max got something for us.
English education in my country. I'm living in Bulgaria. It's awful. In 7 years of learning English here, 7 or 8 years, you won't be able to speak English. It's awful. But
a lot of teachers.
I think the biggest problem with learning any language is unless you're around other native speakers of that language and get to interact with them. It's hard to get comfortable.
I remember the first time I used English in an active conversation with someone who is English speaker first. It was a horrible experience for me and for them. I had a translator right beside me, so that kind of, it was with some of my family members who are married there, so it was kind of problematic, but it was an eye opener and nice. I'm also kind of special. We learned English in school, and I learned American English from TV. Because
of course,
from the start, what I did, I wanted to learn English. I basically had subtitles to understand what they're speaking and to learn from that. At one point, I disabled subtitles. and I forced myself to understand why they were speaking.
In my case, it was something called that DT will know everything about. It was called Sesame Street.
It was what?
Sesame Street.
Oh, yeah, I know Sesame Street.
For me, it was
that was my English school.
For me, it was TV series called NCIS.
Oh,
NCIS.
You watch NCIS. We agree on something at least. Finally, which one? NCIS Los Angeles or NCIS Washington or NCIS New Orleans?
NCIS, the standard one, the one in Washington and LA.
And LA. We agree 100%. 100%. 100%.
I can't believe Dark Zero knew every single NCIS series. He's watched them all.
Yeah, I have them all on my HTPC.
I watched them all as well.
Yeah, I have them all, and my dad is watching them now. He's finishing season 18 of the original one.
Yeah,
season 18. Wow.
Yeah, they're a lot.
19. They're total of 19 seasons, and I was really pissed off that Gibbs left the show.
Yeah, I'm pissed off too.
Oh my god! And I was and still am in love with Ziva David.
Yeah,
that the Cote de Pablo actress was amazing. She caught my heart, and I shed tears when she left. And when she came back for a few episodes, I even shed more tears.
I guess I'm the only one that's never seen a single episode of NCIS.
No, it's an amazing show. I'll tell you one thing about NCIS. I am very picky about my TV shows. Why? Because I don't like cuss words in my TV shows. I don't like sexual innuendos, and I don't like all sexual stuff in my TV shows. It's NCIS. It was and still is successful without cuss words, without sexual innuendo, without any of that.
Well, there was some sexual innuendo between certain characters, but
just like grimaces with the face, but not actual words. Not actual words.
So that is very, very, very.
Yeah, Big Pod said you missed an episode because he saw something.
The one where Ziva and Tony were in a hotel.
Yes.
Oh yeah, he forgot about that.
Ziva and Tony. Yeah. Well, those were just grimaces. They were not actual words.
Yeah.
Swedish Linux raised his hand. What you need, sir?
My English learning was back in the early 80s. It was the A-Team. Airwolf and not Mega Man. It was He-Man. That's the
He-Man. Yeah, I remember the old He-Man. Yeah, and
the old, not the remade one. The old,
the old He-Man. Yeah, and of course the A-Team is a classic.
Oh yeah,
A-Team and Airwolf. I mean,
I just downloaded the A-Team in HD. That cost me 1 terabyte of storage. 11 seasons, come on.
In HD though, but when they were broadcasting on TV back then,
they remastered them.
I was about to say, yeah,
things are many of those things were recorded, not recorded on digital.
And so DT, you
can make them on 4K.
Since we're the same age, you remember Mork and Mindy?
Mork and Mindy?
Mork and Mindy, Robin Williams' first ever TV show.
No.
Okay.
Never watched
that. My God!
Now that you've mentioned it, yeah, I do remember him having the show, but I never watched it.
Yeah, well, Mork and Mindy, I have it, and they're working on a remaster.
Yeah.
That's a show from the 70s.
Yeah.
So I have those kind of shows. You won't find me with a TV show like Mozart in the Jungle or that show with the dragons, whatever it was called.
Yeah.
No, you won't find me with these TV shows.
I'm rewatching Person of Interest.
Which one?
Person of Interest.
Don't know that one.
Yeah, I know that one. Person of Interest. Yeah.
Yeah,
that's actually it's not a bad.
In my opinion, it's the best TV show there is.
Dallas is the best one. The old Dallas.
Yep.
In the 80s. With G.R. Ewing and entire oil fights. Can't beat that.
Star Trek Deep Space Nine. That was
Star Trek Deep Space Nine
exist in the 80s in the same sense.
Star Trek the original series, Star Trek Voyager, Star Trek Deep Space Nine, Star Trek I have them all. All.
Dude,
All.
I'm not a fan of Star Trek, honestly. To me, it's I get too hung up on the scientific detail of how bad it is.
Well, I have news since it's a Linux group. I have news in Star Trek, the new one. Which one was it called? Star Trek. Not the Enterprise.
No, Enterprise was the 5th in the series.
Discovery.
Not Discovery. The one after that.
Oh, okay.
Picard?
No, Star Trek after Picard.
Strange New Worlds.
Strange New Worlds, yeah. In Strange New Worlds, all their LCAR system are running on Linux.
Yeah.
And Chris Titus Tech talked about that version of the window manager created by one user. It wasn't for the show. Somebody forked it for the show, but it's a window manager that uses the LCAR system. So they took that and now they used it in Strange New Worlds. So it's running Linux. It's not running Windows or stickers like in the old days. It's real Linux.
Max, get in
New
here.
Linux was involved.
I just like to point out that we've started this conversation from how documentation should be in English. Then we went to politics.
This is the way it typically goes on these.
Yeah. Then we migrated to how we learn English.
Someone said they learned English from Debbie Does Dallas.
me.
No.
God sees everything aside from Dallas, right?
Yes, I imagine
And
there's
now
people
we're
learning
talking
English
about
by
some-
going to the hub. Right?
The only thing
Oh,
we learn
yeah.
on Dallas is all the brands of the whiskey.
Yeah, but obviously,
Dallas, no.
yeah, obviously we got off the Linux and tech talk, but it's typical for these kinds of things. We've had some of these before where we've delved. I remember a few months back we had one that really went off the rails on rockets for some reason. Somebody got us off on rockets, and we had some on
That's me. I love rockets.
like the holographic nature of the universe. Like we've had some weird discussions.
Satellites.
Satellites.
Rockets use Linux. Some, not all.
Oh yeah.
I can talk about Linux and rockets all day.
So okay. So going back to the Linux environment, has anyone worked ever in a company where they were running Linux?
No.
I have
Okay,
worked
big
for
pod.
companies.
What a surprise!
I have worked at companies that had Linux machines. Yes.
Well, I'm looking for those kind of companies because I don't want to see Windows anymore.
Some
well,
programming companies.
I must say one thing. We talked a little bit about this with Chris Titus Tech the other day. Us as technicians, what is our bread and butter? What makes us the most money? Windows.
Yeah.
Because it's got the most amount of issues. So without Windows,
Oh, nice.
without Windows, no moolah.
Yeah.
So Windows should always exist.
Well, I'm a software developer, so I was offered. First offer was a Dell laptop with Linux. That was a fair offer for me. If I wouldn't say yes to that, it was a Mac laptop.
Oh no, yeah.
But
you didn't want that.
I was okay with the Linux laptop. Yay! I was super happy.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, well,
If you and you know, obviously I've never worked at a job where I've never worked as a sysadmin or a programmer or developer or anything, but I have worked for large companies that have had servers or mainframes, you know, that were on premises, and of course all that stuff is always going to run Linux. Like
Not
that's the
necessarily.
only.
yeah, and the back end. But when you
Oh, trust me, Big Pot. I checked. Like I got in. I made sure they were running Red Hat or CentOS. They were, you know, it was legit Linux.
At companies that were using Windows servers. I have been in such companies.
You should have quit that job
Me too.
immediately if
It
they were
wasn't a
running
job,
Windows
it was an
Server.
internship or practical.
In a world of pain.
I needed
Yeah.
I needed the time.
Oh, it's running Windows Server 2008 or whatever.
2003.
No,
2003.
it was up to date. Like my job at one of those was updating Windows 7 to Windows 10. That was essentially my job. And I was essentially always I was getting desktops, plugging a USB in, clean installing Windows 10 and drivers. That was all I was doing.
I actually did work at a place one time. And it is a large company too, but their point of sale system, the back end was Red Hat. Which was interesting because usually point of sale systems, when you go into any kind of
It's
retail
Windows.
shop
It's
or
Windows
restaurant,
CE.
it's always Windows.
It's
But
Windows
this
CE.
one,
It's Windows CE, that version of Windows that nobody saw on desktops. It's running on point of sale systems. It used to run on point of sale systems. I used to work in sales, so we always had issues.
Until Windows XP will be on your ATMs. That
Oh no, they still not. Our ATMs here. They still run on Windows NT.
Oh,
Or Windows CE.
No, not CE. Here
I've
they still
seen-
run Windows NT and
I've
NT
seen
4.0.
I've seen Windows XPs, but I've also seen some Windows 7s. So that was strange to see Windows 7 on an ATM.
wow.
No, they. I went to ask there's an IT department in every bank. I went to the IT department. I asked them, why don't you upgrade to a newer version of Windows, like Windows 7 or Windows Server,
Windows 8 or
It's
Windows
all
Vista.
about what manufacturer put on.
No, his reply was valid. His reply is investing into retraining everyone to use the newer versions of Windows is too much, and there's no money, so they stick to whatever works. In the latest video of LTT, where Anthony started mentioning a company that makes money today out of selling classic desktops that run Windows 98.
Yeah.
This is their bread and butter today, because a lot of companies don't want to invest to retrain all their employees, so they purchase computers that runs the version of Windows that they're used to.
Yeah.
Like
companies locally here.
Plants, machinery plants that are running on Windows. Their machines run on Windows NT or 98 or whatever old version of Windows. They're not going to
Windows 2000 is very popular. Windows 2000 is still very popular with some businesses that.
That's my favorite Windows that's my favorite version of Windows.
Personally, my favorite version of Windows is Windows 8.1.
What?
Yeah,
you always have to be weird, don't you?
No, it's that's the first that I had. That was one of the versions of Windows I actually did like. It was in my
Windows
opinion,
8 was probably the
certain features
biggest.
of it was better than any other.
You know, Big Pod has a point. I love Windows 8 because so many people converted to Linux when Windows 8 came out.
I
Thank
agree
you, Windows 8.
with you, DT. I agree 100% with you.
No, for me it was the start screen. It was so much better than start menu.
Yeah, having to search for everything in the search. Windows 8.1 Windows 8 was the version of Windows where we used the search function more than any other version of Windows.
Search became much better than it was in 7. That's one. But two, the start screen as it was much better than any kind of start menu. I actually still, or I don't know if you can, I didn't change that on 11, but on 10, I don't know if you can, but on 10, as soon as I could, I changed so I had start screen, not start menu, because it was just a better experience. That's why
it was for touch screens. It was dedicated for touch screens.
But I just like start screen, and when I press space to have the whole screen covered. That's why I use on my work laptop, I use GNOME. That's why on my NixOS I use GNOME, because I like that paradigm.
User preference.
That's why I like Windows 8.1.
User preference. Each user prefers something. Yeah.
That was my only problem with 8. It didn't have start button.
Well, I do want to briefly get back to a Linux thing. The Nala package manager that everybody loves now. Are we going to get that in Ubuntu Monte soon, or is
No,
it going to be?
no. First of all, until it's not in Ubuntu repositories, no.
Are we gonna get it on Arch?
Wow.
No, it's for apt.
I
But
know,
you can get
I
apt
know,
on
but
Arch.
somebody should fork it for Arch.
But you can get apt on Arch. It just breaks your machine. when
No,
you
I'm not
buy-
saying apt. I'm saying somebody should fork Nala to use Pacman.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how that would work. Yeah.
Lib AP. What is it
The
called?
APT, is that what?
No, lib. What? Zero. You might know what's the name for library for that is behind Pacman.
Behind Pacman, it's
Oh.
lib. It's lib Pacman.
Lib
ALPM.
lib APM. Yeah.
Lib APM. Yeah.
APM, yeah.
That's essentially the equivalent of lib apt, which is what.
Yeah, but Nala is written in Rust, so it can be reverse engineered.
Yeah.
That's exactly what you should do. Yeah.
Yeah, good one.
Swedish
I'm
Linux.
saying it
On
should.
Ubuntu, I still use apt. Works great for me.
Swedish Linux. You got something for us?
Yeah, about the Windows thing. It's two reasons why I switched to Linux. One is UDT, because I followed you for a couple of years. And second
Awesome.
is I hate Microsoft spying and keylogging because in the work for the government, I noticed how much it transmits back to headquarters of Redmond. And but the main reason is UDT, actually, because I never thought about using Linux as a desktop environment. I always thought it as a server system. So hats to you.
I appreciate that. I had my journey was a little different for those not familiar with it. I actually switched out of necessity because I had a Windows machine that was taken over by ransomware. And having been familiar with Linux a little bit on servers, and I checked it out in VMs before, I just went with it. I just cold turkey one day, wiped out Windows, went with Linux, and never looked back. Mainly just because I was so pissed off and disgusted with that Windows machine being taken over by that hacker that was trying to hold me hostage. He wanted me to pay to get my machine back. I'll sell you the antivirus so you can have your Windows installed. No,
The reason
I had a CD of Ubuntu back then because they would ship CDs to you.
The reason I switched to Linux was because of Fedora.
Wow.
My first Linux was Red Hat 3. I purchased it. I think I still have the CD somewhere.
You got that in a magazine?
No, I actually purchased it at a computer show.
Okay.
I purchased that. I purchased Red Hat 3, and I purchased the Quake. No, wait a minute. Yeah, the Quake 3 Linux version.
I think I still have Quake 3 somewhere. Yeah.
Oh, I loved Quake 3.
I still have the CDs. Yeah, that was amazing. The game is still one of the best games ever.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And not to sound a bit hypocritical, but Fedora made me fall in love with Linux because of GNOME, but now I hate GNOME.
That's why I said wow when you said Fedora, because I didn't expect.
It showed me. I like the package installer in Fedora. The way it listed the packages in a table and showing you the size and then the version and everything. It started my gears rolling. I went then to Manjaro. Manjaro was the reason why I fell in love with KDE. So,
I think I have a Mandrake CD also.
Yeah.
Mandrake?
Yeah, I have it.
Yeah.
And for those that were around when magazines were a thing, you would often get like tech magazines with like Slackware CDs and SUSE CDs in them. And
Yep.
That was a good way to get to spread the word around.
And of course, back then, especially back in the 90s, early 2000s, internet speeds were not what they were. So downloading a distribution was a chore. So getting it on a CD was nice.
Me too. My first Linux was 98. It was Red Hat or SUSE that I tried out. 98 or 99, something like that. That I got on CD through the magazine, actually.
Yeah. An interesting bit of history, too, for those kind of new to Linux. Obviously, Slackware is the oldest active distribution, but just shortly after Slackware was started, a couple years later, SUSE actually began as a fork of Slackware originally, which a lot of people find kind of weird because you don't associate SUSE with Slackware, but originally that's what it was.
Except you guys bought the magazines. Except we used to steal the CDs off of the magazines on the shelf. We couldn't afford the magazines, so we used to steal the CDs.
If we go a bit back to Fedora, for me, Fedora was the distribution that made me almost hate Linux and stop using it on laptop. So thank God Ubuntu exists.
You know what? I can relate a little bit to the stories about Fedora making you guys explore other things because I had the same experience, not necessarily with the distribution, but with the desktop environment it shipped with. When my Windows machine was taken over, I had the Ubuntu CD, and I installed Ubuntu 804 or whatever the hell it was back then with GNOME 2, and I hated that desktop environment. I immediately started exploring window managers. And that's how I started using things like OpenBox and then Awesome Window Manager and things. And I've never looked back because I just did not like that desktop environment that shipped with Ubuntu. So I immediately started looking at other things, and it's been that way ever since.
With me, I hated GNOME, so I started looking for something else until I found Manjaro with KDE.
For me, it wasn't the desktop environment. First time I seriously used Linux on the desktop outside of school, which we had a classroom full of Linux desktops, which had CentOS. It was on my laptop. I first installed what it was 1710 of Ubuntu, but I had problems with Wayland. That was the first version of Ubuntu before 22 that had Wayland, and it was horrible. So I wanted to try something else. So I knew about another distro called Fedora, and I installed it, and it caused me only trouble. So I went back to Ubuntu, and it was a desktop environment because 1710 was the first time GNOME was again in Ubuntu, and I had no problem with GNOME. I still don't have a problem with GNOME. I don't like it very much, but I can use it. It's a usable desktop environment.
I find it odd.
It is beautiful, Fedora, but functionally broken.
It works.
I find it odd with Fedora, though. Here recently, I see people discovering Fedora, and this is such a nice distribution, user-friendly, everybody should use it. And it's weird because forever, as long as I can remember, Fedora was always not necessarily new user-friendly. You had to jump through some hoops to enable some third-party repositories to get your drivers, and
Wi-Fi was a problem on
font
Fedora.
rendering back in the day wasn't great. I mean, I remember when Fedora was not really a good distribution. People didn't recommend it, and now all of a sudden, I see so many articles. Fedora is great. Everybody should use Fedora. Fedora is the new Ubuntu. I see videos saying the same thing. Fedora is great. It's the best distribution ever. And literally, I take a look at every release of Fedora. Fedora is exactly the same as it was a year ago, 5 years. Like, it hasn't changed, but people's opinion of it, oddly enough, has changed for some reason. I don't really get it.
The people's opinions are shaped by influencers.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because literally nothing has changed about that distribution.
As far as I'm aware, Fedora updates like Windows, like you have to reboot and don't turn off your computer.
That's not a problem. I don't have a problem with that. And I'm gonna tell you a little bit of a secret. Fedora's GNOME is slower than Ubuntu's GNOME.
Yes, that's correct.
I've noticed that too.
I noticed that too.
Yeah, I've
Wanna know
noticed
why?
that.
Oh, wow.
Because Ubuntu Canonical, there is a person who makes updates to GNOME that don't get shipped with GNOME because they don't want.
It's not just Fedora's GNOME; it's everyone's.
Yes, everyone but Canonicals.
Yeah,
because
I check them out in virtual machines, and when I go and fire up HTOP, and I see that GNOME on all of these distributions takes like 1.1 gigs on a cold boot, and then I go check out the latest Ubuntu, and it takes 800 megs. It's like,
Yes.
what's the difference?
There is a person at Canonical that makes updates that generally aren't put into upstream GNOME.
That optimizes GNOME, basically.
Yes.
Yeah, but if you ship GNOME as it is without optimizations, it's going to use a lot of memory. But if you optimize it, like we did with KDE on Zero Linux, thanks to a user on my group, we were able to take down the cold boot RAM usage of KDE down to 600 megabytes. So you can do that if you optimize. If you don't optimize, you're going to end up with a lot of RAM usage on cold boot. So
And hopefully the Ubuntu guy that's helping patch GNOME, he's pushing that back upstream, right?
He's trying.
Okay.
That's
basically
that's the
Fedora
words. He is
actually got a new function in 32 when they start to using Red Hat's server system for checking it. And that's why Fedora become popular, because it become much more stable and much more reliable to use. Before 32, version 32, we didn't use that system. And that's why Fedora before that was pretty crappy.
I'll tell you
Fedora's update system.
Yeah, I'll tell you a reason why people think Fedora is a lot more stable now than it was a few years ago.
Yeah.
A lot of it has to do with GNOME.
Yeah.
Because Fedora shipped those early versions of GNOME 3.0, 3.2, and those things were so horribly broken. They were practically unusable. But Fedora kind of being this bleeding edge distribution, we talked about shipping things that were beta quality to have people test. Fedora does that. And that kind of soured a lot of people's opinion of both GNOME and Fedora for many years, and now GNOME is a lot better. I think that has softened people's opinion of Fedora a little bit, because GNOME 42 is good.
That's the reason. That's the reason why. Think about it this way: Fedora is one of the very few distros that ship that have an immutable version, right?
Yeah.
That's why the Steam Deck did not ship with Fedora immutable. They chose to go with Arch immutable.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. So, speaking of which, what do you guys think about third-party distros on the Steam Deck?
I mean,
why not?
That was always going to happen. I mean, we're going to have Steam Deck specific distributions. People are going to create their own custom. Yeah. I mean, that was always going to happen.
That's why I'm trying to get a Steam Deck to get Zero Linux on the Steam Deck, because the immutable part of the Steam Deck, because people are buying the Steam Deck not only as a portable gaming station, they're buying it because it's somewhat of a portable desktop. So I wanted to see if I could fork Zero Linux to that while forking the Steam Deck UI to Zero Linux. That way they can get a fully functional desktop environment with a fully functional Steam Deck UI. So, but I'm trying to. It's very hard to get your hands on a Steam Deck these days, because
it's not that hard, especially if you were.
If you go on eBay, there are ones you can buy straight off of eBay. But how much do you trust eBay?
Yeah, but the other thing is you're going to pay.
I got an email
that, right?
from Steam if I want to buy one. I got the email if I want to buy one.
Oh, I thought Big Pot had his, and he would sell it to you for a premium.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
I signed up in the lines in January, so I was in Q3 batch.
Yeah, but
wanna know what I did? I could have bought. I had 2 days to buy it. I didn't buy it.
Oh, I was about to say put it on eBay. That's what he
I decided that I'm not gonna buy it because.
But the thing is, I'm happy that Linux is finding a foothold on hardware, like laptop manufacturers like System 76 and the others creating hardware specifically for Linux. That's why Linux is starting to become more widespread. I'm happy about that, but it needs to pick up steam because we're doing all these distributions for non-Linux based hardware. We should start creating distros for Steam specific hardware. Like I'm looking if I can get my hands on those Linux laptops and see if Zero Linux works on them.
While I have no problem with people creating distros for Steam Deck, I don't think there is a necessity for that.
I see it the contrary, because it's limiting. The current version
with that, I agree with Martin. He was asked if he was going to create a Ubuntu Mate for Steam Deck. He said no.
No, I'm saying something similar to Zero Linux. Why? Because it will remove the immutable part. Because with the immutable section of the desktop, if they release a total system update, it will wipe out all your settings, and they only give you.
The only good thing about Steam Deck from Linux perspective is this is immutable.
You can't break it. Right. I mean,
why I wanted it, because I wanted to play with their immutable system and
because
it's Linux hardware, and that was all I wanted it for.
But
that's why
one of the limitations is that they offer you only 2 gigabytes of space for your home directory.
Okay.
Yeah, but
reality, it isn't a desktop replacement.
Yeah,
people who use it as that, sorry, it is not. It is a gaming console with an open gaming console. Simple as that. It isn't a it shouldn't be treated.
No, I'm not saying it is a computer. I'm saying some people cannot afford to buy a full-on desktop or a full-on laptop, but they can afford to buy a Steam Deck. That way, they get a console and a desktop 2-in-1. So for those kind of people who want to use the desktop part fully, I'm not saying it's for everyone. It's for those small niche people who want to have a full-fledged desktop with no limitations. There should be a choice of distros.
Well, most Linux distros are niche products anyway. I mean,
yes,
most Linux distributions out there were created for a very small group of people anyway.
Let's remember,
that's no different than anything else.
That should be considered any kind of mainstream is Ubuntu. That thing has more users than most distros put together.
And hey guys, we're coming up on the end of the 2 hours here, so let's all take a second and give a last word. So let's go around. Dark Zero, give us a last word.
All right, my last word today is going to be something different. My country is currently running into issues right now with politics and other stuff, specifically related to electricity. So they're trying to cut down our electrical power to 3 hours a day instead of 6. And with the increase of diesel fuel prices, it's going to be very hard for me to keep on working on Zero Linux. So I'll be posting in chat right now links where you can donate and help me out with the bills, specifically because we went from $50 a month to $250. And that's not. It's going to be very difficult to keep on with that. If I can't keep up with the bills, I won't be able to continue work on Zero Linux. So with the permission of DT, I was allowed to post the links in chat. I'm going to send them right now. Okay. And any contribution from anyone would be awesome. It'll be used to keep the power on, basically, to be able to continue work on Zero Linux.
Yeah, obviously, only having 3 hours a day of power, you can't get any work done.
No, it takes 3 hours just to read code.
Right. So anybody that's interested in helping Zero Linux out, there is a link posted in the YouTube chat. So guys, check out if you can spare a couple of dollars, that would be great to help out. Hip Dad, give us a last word, sir.
Help Zero.
All right. What's the name of the cat?
This is Lenny, the Linux
Lenny?
cat. Yeah, he's got a
Linux cat.
backstory. I got him through Facebook. One of my friends, when I used Facebook, posted a picture, said, thanks to the people that left this kitten in a shoebox in our driveway. And they posted a picture, and I said, I'll be there in an hour to get him. And when I got him, he had cat litter embedded in his claws. But when I got him, it was at a veterinary clinic, and they said, well, what's the name you're going to give? Because since I adopted him, they gave free neutering and all that. And I said, well, what did you call him? And they said, Lenny. And I usually name my cats after computer stuff. And I said, just change the E to an I and we're good.
Mm-hmm. Well, honestly, Linux, the mascot, should probably not be a penguin. It probably should be a black cat because of the bad luck.
I love that black cat wallpaper you found the other day. That was awesome.
That was great. Yeah, that was. Big Bud, give us the last word, sir.
Let's see.
Thank you.
Rockets. JavaScript.
Open source doesn't mean secure.
Right. Always.
That's really important, especially in supply chain security. We learn it the hard way that open source doesn't mean secure. And check out my YouTube channel, youtube.com/BigPod. I might actually post some videos again there. And check it especially because this month there will be an announcement.
Awesome.
And hopefully it will be a good announcement.
It'll be about rockets. Hopefully.
No, but I do have planned video. There is a bit of a script already made about how Linux and rocketry mix, where in rocketry Linux is used and how it's used. So also check that. The concept is really cool, and what I already know, I know a lot, and it's gonna be quite a bit of a video, and it's a pretty cool video.
All right, thanks, Big Bud.
Speaking of which, the power just went out.
The power just went out. We saw. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Stefan, give us the last word, sir.
Well, thanks for the chat as usual and the interesting debate, going a little bit around different topics than just file systems or audio, which was very nice. Thanks for your time, and for the audience and to everyone else, I might just add, try to be nice and kind to each other, and that's about the most important thing. Be kind. Thank you.
Well said. All right. Appreciate that. George, give us the last word, sir.
Yeah. Thanks again for another session here, and good to kind of catch up, even though I've been more silent this time. But I also second the throwing the support behind Zero Linux.
Thank you, guys.
Absolutely. Yeah. Swedish Linux, give us the last word.
Okay, DT. Thanks for the chat. It was really fun. And I finally met the guru, DT, who make me switch desktop to Linux. So if everything goes wrong, I'm going to blame you.
It's fine. I can take it.
But I really hope that Linux kicks better with the Steam Deck, because it could be a big pull for Linux desktop, because Linux really need to be shown more. And this kind of talks and streams you do, DT, is it's really connecting with the people. I'm living evidence of that. So just keep up the good work, and hope we can together make Linux better.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Nice to meet you, by the way. All right. Max, you there? Can you give us the last word?
Yeah. So first of all, I just want to thank DT for hosting this chat. Second of all, I just want to mention that we haven't gotten DT haven't gotten a problem with audio this stream for the
That's
first
not true.
time.
You guys were
did I miss
muted for
out?
the first 2 minutes.
Oh.
We did run into a problem.
Yeah.
I missed it. Sorry.
But that was a
okay.
major improvement over the last stream where the first 45 minutes of the stream were a problem. So we're getting better.
Yeah, it's evolving.
I imagine in about 2 years I'll finally figure out how OBS really works.
Good luck in that. And last of all, if you're a beginner in Linux, don't use rolling distros.
Don't use a rolling release.
Yeah, I learned the hard way.
It's not that bad, but thanks for hanging out, Max.
Brandon,
yeah, all right. Brandon looks like he stepped away because there's no one on camera. Andreas.
Vento just got an update.
Huh?
Vento just got an update.
Oh, okay.
All right.
Can you hear me? Because I had a little
you.
bit trouble with my video. Thanks for all the nice videos. Though I'm a low-level guy, rather, I can always learn something from you, DT, about a new tool or so, which I didn't know about yet. I remember this from Void Linux, actually. I think it was the founder. He made some very nice news, a news blog on the main page. And he had always a new tool to present to people. And I find this really interesting, actually. Thanks for that. And I'm going back to also save some power because winter gets here and gas shortage, and I don't know what. Though I think people are panicking a little bit in Europe, given what I've seen in Lebanon. Yeah, we have to prepare also here a little bit.
Yeah, it's starting to become actually more than just Europe, really globally, because of the prices of natural gas, especially really increasing. That power consumption, especially in the northern hemisphere, once we get toward winter, that's going to cause major issues for some people that are in colder climates. Hopefully, all of this gets straightened out.
Heat your house.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys for hanging out with me. My last word, of course, is thanking everybody that joined us on camera today. You guys were great. We had some people that were here earlier that dropped out, so thanks to all of those guys. The YouTube chat, you guys were great too, although I didn't get to read too many of the questions and comments you guys were leaving this time. I do apologize for that, but we were having so much fun chatting here about Star Trek and NCIS and so many things. I forgot to look at the chat half the time. And of course, I want to thank the patrons that couldn't be with us on camera. So I'm going to show some names on the screen here.
Yeah, don't forget to add me. Because I'm a Patreon, but I wasn't on the last movie.
The last one was not updated.
Aha.
Yeah, because I do these from home. This stream is the only stream I do from home, and my OBS configs at the office are not here. So I didn't have an updated sheet, but this time I actually
extra today.
But it's updated this time.
I will look extra.
Anybody that's joined within the last 2 or 3 weeks for sure is on there, and I know you've been a patron longer than that. So matter of fact, I'm going to go back to we're going to verify. I'm going to go to the S's, assuming that's where you are. Actually, you probably started with the T's. I don't see you. Never mind. You might not be there. I lied. Yeah, I'm going to update the list right after this. All right, guys. Peace. Wait, bye.